I was standing there at the gate at LaGuardia a few weeks ago, just watching the chaos unfold. It was one of those early morning flights, the kind where everyone is already running on caffeine and regret. And there was this woman, probably in her late 40s, dressed in a sharp business suit, clearly heading to a big meeting. She had one of those expensive carry-ons, the sleek kind with the spinner wheels. She was calm, collected, totally confident. She handed her boarding pass to the agent, and then the agent asked her to place her bag in the sizer, that little metal contraption next to the podium that everyone ignores. And she did, and it didn't fit. It was off by maybe an inch, if that. The agent was polite but firm. "Sorry, ma'am, it has to be checked." And the look on her face? It wasn't just annoyance. It was genuine, deep confusion. She kept repeating, "But I flew in on this same airline yesterday. It was fine yesterday. Why is it not fine today?" And that is the exact moment that got me thinking about the bigger picture here. Why is it that we can fly for years without a problem, and then suddenly, at the gate, our bag becomes public enemy number one? Here's the question I want you to really think about, and I need you to be honest with yourself. Have you ever been at the gate, watching other passengers get flagged for their bags, and quietly thought to yourself, "That's ridiculous. It's just a little bit too big. Who cares?" Or maybe you've been the one holding the bag while everyone stares. I want to know. Drop a comment right now and tell me about the last time you saw a gate agent deny a carry-on. What was the bag? What was the airline? How did the passenger react? I'm genuinely curious, and I read these comments because this is how we learn from each other's real-world experiences. So go ahead, pause for a second, type it out, and then come back, because I promise you, by the time you finish this article, you're going to understand exactly why that bag got denied, and more importantly, you're going to know how to make sure it never happens to you. Let's rewind for a second and talk about the elephant in the room, or rather, the elephant in the overhead bin. The Transportation Security Administration, the TSA, they get blamed for a lot of things at the airport. And sure, sometimes they deserve the criticism. But here is the distinction that almost nobody understands. When you are at the gate and the agent tells you your bag is too big, that is not the TSA. That is the airline. And this is where the confusion starts. People lump everything together. They go through security, they deal with the screening, they put their shoes back on, they walk to the gate, and they think the rules are the same. They are not. The TSA has a very specific job. They are looking for threats. They are looking for weapons, explosives, things that could bring down the plane. They do not care, in the strictest sense of the word, how big your bag is. They care about what is inside it. The airline, on the other hand, they care about everything. They care about the size, the weight, the number of bags, and most importantly, they care about the space. Now, I want you to think about the physics of a modern airplane for a minute. That fuselage is a tube. It has a fixed volume. The overhead bins, even the fancy ones on the newer planes, they have a fixed capacity. The airline has sold a ticket to every seat in that cabin. In a perfect world, every passenger would bring one bag that fits exactly into that bin space. But we don't live in a perfect world. We live in a world where people bring two bags, or a bag that is technically a carry-on but looks like it could house a small family. And this is where the system breaks down. The gate agents, they are the last line of defense. They are the ones who have to look at the plane, look at how many people are boarding, look at the bins, and make a split-second decision about whether everything is going to fit. When they see a bag that is even slightly oversized, they have to make a judgment call. And increasingly, they are being told by the airlines to be stricter. Why? Because those bins fill up, and when they fill up, the flight gets delayed while they try to find space for bags that have to be gate-checked, and delays cost money. But let's go deeper than that. Let's talk about why your bag might have been fine yesterday but is a problem today. It's not just about the airline changing the rules, although sometimes they do. It's about the specific aircraft you are on. You might have flown into LaGuardia on a Boeing 737. That plane has a certain bin configuration, but your flight out might be on a smaller regional jet, a CRJ 900 or an Embraer E175. Those planes have smaller bins. They are curved, they are tighter, and a bag that slid in perfectly on the mainline jet might be physically impossible to fit into the regional jet's bin. The gate agent knows this. They know what plane is waiting at the gate, and they are saving you from the embarrassment of walking down the jet bridge, holding up the line, trying to shove your bag in, and then having to walk it all the way back to the door to have it checked anyway. They are actually doing you a favor, even though it doesn't feel like it. Now, this brings us to the real meat of the topic. What does the TSA actually allow, and what do they forbid? And why do those rules sometimes seem just as arbitrary as the airline's bag sizer? I've spent years watching this process, talking to officers and traveling through probably every major hub in the country. And I can tell you, the rules make sense once you understand the logic behind them. But the logic isn't always obvious. Let's start with the things people mess up the most. Liquids, the 3-1-1 rule. Everyone knows it, or at least they think they know it. 3.4 ounces, 1 quart-sized bag, 1 bag per person. But watch the security line for 10 minutes and you will see the same mistakes over and over. It's not the big bottles of shampoo that get people anymore. It's the stuff they forget about. It's the peanut butter. It's the hummus. It's the can of soup they bought at the farmer's market and threw in their bag at the last minute. I saw a guy once, he was so angry because the TSA pulled his bag aside for a tube of almond butter. He kept yelling, "It's a solid. It's food." But here is the thing, and this is crucial. The TSA doesn't look at the state of the item at room temperature. They look at its potential state. Almond butter, peanut butter, Nutella, hummus, yogurt, they are all considered gels or liquids because they can be spread, they can be mixed, they have the consistency of a liquid. And the security officers are trained to look for anything that could be used to hide a liquid explosive. So that creamy almond butter? It has to go in the 3-1-1 bag, and if it's bigger than 3.4 ounces, it's getting tossed or eaten right there at the checkpoint. And this leads to a wider point about how officers think. They are not trying to ruin your day. They are running a risk assessment on every item that goes through the X-ray. The machine gives them an image, and they have to interpret that image based on density and shape. A container of peanut butter to the machine looks a lot like a container of C4 explosive. It has the same organic density. So the officer has to make a call. Do they let it through and hope it's just a snack, or do they pull the bag and check it? They are going to pull it every single time, because their job is not to be nice. Their job is to be sure. And that is the fundamental tension in every security checkpoint in America. The passenger wants speed and convenience. The officer wants safety and certainty. Those two things are natural enemies. Let's move to another area where people get tripped up, and this one is becoming more common every year: batteries and electronics, specifically lithium batteries. The TSA has very clear rules about where you can put these things, and they are not messing around. Spare lithium batteries, the loose ones, the power banks, the external chargers, they absolutely cannot go in your checked luggage. I want to say that again because it is one of the most important rules you need to remember. Lithium batteries in checked bags are a fire risk. In the cargo hold, if a battery catches fire, it's hard to detect and even harder to put out. In the cabin, the flight attendants can get to it. They can put it in a special fire containment bag. They can handle it. So all those spare batteries, they have to come with you in the cabin, either in your pocket or in your carry-on. And this includes vapes. Electronic cigarettes, vapes, they have to be on your person or in your carry-on. I cannot tell you how many people have shown up at the airport, checked their bag, and then realized their vape is in there. That's not just a TSA problem. That's a federal regulation problem. You could be facing some serious questions if they find it during screening. Now, what about the electronics themselves? Laptops, tablets, gaming devices. For years, the rule was simple. Anything larger than a cell phone had to come out of the bag and go into a separate bin. That rule has changed in some airports with newer, more advanced scanners. If you go through a checkpoint that has the computed tomography scanners, the CT machines, you can leave everything in your bag. They give a 3D image. They can rotate it. They can see inside from every angle. But here is the catch. Not every airport has these. And even at airports that have them, not every lane has them. So you have to be ready for the old school method. You have to be ready to pull out that laptop, pull out that iPad, and put them in a bin by themselves. The people who get annoyed are the ones who assume every airport is the same. They get to the front of the line, they are told to take out their electronics, and they act surprised. Don't be that person. Pay attention to the signs. Watch what the people in front of you are doing. The airport is a fluid environment, and the rules on the ground depend on the equipment that is available. Speaking of things that change, let's talk about food. We already touched on the gel-like foods, but what about solid food? Can you bring a sandwich through security? Yes, absolutely. You can bring a whole pizza if you want. Solid food is fine. The TSA doesn't care about your turkey and Swiss. But, and this is a big but, if that sandwich has a sauce on it, if it's dripping, if it's something that could be considered a liquid or gel, you might get a second look. And again, international flights change everything. If you are flying internationally, especially to a place like Australia or New Zealand, they have strict biosecurity laws. You might get through TSA fine, only to have your apple or your leftover sandwich confiscated by agricultural control on the other end. So think about where you are going. Now, I want to get into the gray areas because this is where the real confusion lives. The items that are technically allowed but are almost guaranteed to get you stopped. Let's start with tools. Can you bring a hammer in your carry-on? The TSA website says tools 7 inches or shorter are generally permitted. But here is the reality. If you bring a hammer, even a small one, the officer at the X-ray is going to stop and look at it. They are going to think about whether it could be used as a weapon, and they have the final say. So you might be technically within the rules, but you are going to wait, you are going to get your bag searched, and you are going to hold up the line. Is it worth it? Probably not. The same goes for screwdrivers, wrenches, pliers. If it looks like it could be used to cause harm, the officer can use their discretion to say no. And they will, especially if you seem nervous or agitated. Then there are the sporting goods, baseball bats, hockey sticks, ski poles. These are generally not allowed in the cabin. They have to be checked. But what about a golf club? Technically, you can bring a single golf club in your carry-on. But again, think about the optics. You are walking through an airport with a metal club that is designed to swing and hit things. The officer is going to look at that and think this is a blunt object, and they are probably going to pull you aside. The rule of thumb here is simple. If it looks like it could be used to hit someone, put it in your checked bag. Don't push your luck at the checkpoint. And this brings me to a topic that is very close to my heart and probably very frustrating to a lot of you. The inconsistency, the fact that you can fly through one airport with a certain item and then get stopped at another. I hear this complaint constantly. I flew with this knife in my carry-on from Chicago, and now in Denver, they are taking it away. Well, yes, because the officers are human. They have different levels of experience, different interpretations of the rules, and different thresholds for what looks suspicious. But more importantly, the TSA publishes a list of prohibited items, but they also give officers the authority to make the final determination. So one officer might look at a small multi-tool and see a useful gadget. Another officer might look at the same tool and see the knife blade and the pliers and decide it's too risky. There is no appeals process at the checkpoint. Once they decide, that's it. You can either mail the item back to yourself if the airport has a mailing service, or you can surrender it and move on. Arguing is not going to help. It's only going to make them more suspicious and take more time. Let's shift gears and talk about the things you might not even think about. The things that are so obvious you overlook them. Firearms. Obviously, you cannot bring a gun in your carry-on, but people try. They forget. They leave it in their bag. And this is not a minor mistake. This is a serious crime. In many jurisdictions, bringing a firearm to a security checkpoint is an arrestable offense. You can face fines, you can lose your pre-check privileges, you can even face jail time. And it happens more often than you think. The TSA catches thousands of guns at checkpoints every year. Thousands. And the excuse is almost always the same. I forgot it was there. But in the eyes of the law, forgetting is not an excuse. You are responsible for the contents of your bag. So before you pack, check your bag, check it again, and then check it one more time. And then there are the replica items, the toy guns, the realistic-looking water pistols, the Nerf guns that look a little too real. Don't bring them. It doesn't matter that it's a toy. The officer in the X-ray sees the shape of a gun. They don't know it's a toy. They have to assume it's real until they can verify. That means your bag gets pulled, you get surrounded by law enforcement, and the whole checkpoint comes to a halt. It's not worth it. If you are traveling with a child and they have a toy gun, put it in the checked luggage. Better yet, leave it at home. The same goes for grenade-shaped items, keychains that look like grenades, novelty salt and pepper shakers shaped like grenades. They are going to cause a scene. The officers cannot tell from the X-ray that it's hollow and harmless. They see a grenade, and they react accordingly. Now, I want to talk about a category that is growing rapidly, and that is medical and personal care items. This is where the rules get very specific and very lenient at the same time. If you have medications, especially liquid medications, they are exempt from the 311 rule. You can bring larger quantities of liquid medication in your carry-on. But, and this is the key, you have to declare them. You need to take them out of your bag at the checkpoint and tell the officer. They may need to test them, they may need to swab them for explosives. It adds a little time, but it's the right way to do it. If you just leave a big bottle of liquid in your bag and try to send it through, you are going to get stopped and it's going to take longer. So be proactive. Pull out your medications, put them in a bin by themselves, and let the officer know what they are. And this leads to another point about disabilities and medical conditions. The TSA has a program called TSA Cares. If you have a medical condition, a disability, or even just need extra assistance, you can call ahead, and they will have someone meet you at the checkpoint. This is an underutilized resource. People are embarrassed or they don't want to make a fuss. But the checkpoint is a stressful environment. If you have a condition that makes it hard to stand for long periods, or if you have a medical device that needs special handling, use the program. It's there to help you. And the officers, when they are informed ahead of time, are usually very accommodating. The problems happen when they are surprised. When they see something unusual in the X-ray and they don't have context, that's when the suspicion starts. Let's talk about money. Can you bring cash through security? Yes. There is no limit to how much cash you can carry. But if you are carrying a large amount, tens of thousands of dollars, you are going to attract attention. Not necessarily from TSA, but from law enforcement. If you are flying domestically, there is no law that says you have to declare cash. But if you are flying internationally, you have to declare amounts over $10,000 to Customs and Border Protection. And if you don't declare it and they find it, they can seize it. They can take your money, and it is very hard to get it back. So if you are traveling with a lot of cash, be prepared for questions. Be prepared to explain where it came from and where it's going. And if you are flying internationally, fill out the form. It's not illegal to carry cash, but it is illegal to lie about it. Now, I want to circle back to the gate because that's where we started, and that's where so much of the confusion happens. We talked about the airline agents and the size restrictions, but there is another layer to this that involves the TSA, even at the gate. Sometimes after you've been through security, you might pick up an item that is not allowed. Maybe you bought a bottle of water after the checkpoint, or a souvenir, or a gift. That water is fine because you bought it in the secure area. But if you buy something that looks like a weapon, a replica sword, a decorative knife, you might run into trouble when you try to board. The airline gate agents can refuse to let you board with an item they deem dangerous. And they can call the TSA or law enforcement to the gate. So, just because you bought it inside the airport doesn't mean you can take it on the plane. Think about the size and the shape. If it could be used as a weapon, even if it's a souvenir, it's probably going to have to be checked. And this brings me to the psychology of it all. The reason people get so frustrated, the reason that woman in the business suit looked so betrayed by the universe, is that we crave consistency. We want the rules to be the same every time, everywhere. But airports are not consistent. They are a living, breathing system that has to adapt to threats, to weather, to crowds, to equipment failures. The TSA officer who stopped you in Atlanta might have been working a double shift. The gate agent in New York might have just dealt with 10 people in a row who tried to stuff giant bags into the overhead. They are human, and their decisions are influenced by factors you can't see. So, what do you do about it? How do you protect yourself from the chaos? The first thing is knowledge. Know the rules, not just the general rules, but the specifics. Go on the TSA website. Look at the prohibited items list. Understand the difference between what is forbidden and what is up to the officer's discretion. The second thing is preparation. Pack your bag with the screening process in mind. Put your liquids in a clear bag on top. Keep your electronics accessible. Don't bury things at the bottom of a dense suitcase. The easier you make it for the officer to see what's in your bag, the faster you get through. The third thing is attitude. Be polite. Be patient. The person in the uniform is not your enemy. They are doing a job that requires them to be suspicious of everyone. If you are friendly and cooperative, they are more likely to be lenient. If you are angry and confrontational, they are going to follow every rule to the letter, and they might even find something to pull you aside for. And finally, when it comes to the gate, measure your bag before you leave the house. Don't rely on the fact that it fit last time. Get a tape measure. Measure the height, the width, the depth, compare it to the airline's requirements. And if you're flying on a discount airline, the ones that charge for everything, be extra careful. Those airlines are notorious for being strict because they make money on bag fees. They have agents at the gate whose job is to find bags that are too big and charge you. It's a revenue stream for them. So don't give them the satisfaction. Make sure your bag fits or be prepared to pay. I remember one time I was flying out of Orlando, and it was a zoo. Families everywhere, kids crying, people exhausted. And there was this guy, he had one of those backpacks that is technically a backpack, but is actually the size of a small refrigerator. He was trying to board, and the gate agent stopped him. He argued for a good 5 minutes. He kept saying, "I've taken this on 100 flights. And the agent just kept pointing to the sizer. Finally, he gave up, and he had to check it. But here's the kicker. When he opened the bag to take out his laptop, because you don't want to check your laptop, it was stuffed full of souvenirs. He had bought a giant Mickey Mouse plush, one of the big ones, and it was crammed in there. That's why the bag didn't fit. It wasn't the bag itself, it was the contents. He had packed it to the gills, and it had expanded beyond its natural shape. That's another thing to watch out for. Even if your bag is technically the right size, if you overstuff it, it can bulge. It can become too wide or too deep. The sizer doesn't care about your bag's theoretical dimensions. It cares about the physical reality. If it doesn't slide in easily, it's too big. So as you're getting ready for your next trip, I want you to think about all of this. Think about the liquids, the batteries, the tools, the souvenirs. Think about the airline you're flying and the plane you're likely to be on. Think about the fact that the rules are not just arbitrary hoops to jump through. They are there because at some point, someone tried to bring something dangerous on a plane, and the rule was created to stop it from happening again. The system is reactive. It responds to threats, and as new threats emerge, the rules will change. And that, in the end, is the real takeaway. The airport is a place where safety and convenience are in a constant tug of war. And safety always wins. It has to. So the next time you're standing in line and you see someone getting their bag searched, or you hear someone arguing with an agent about the size of their suitcase, take a breath. Remember that it's not personal. It's just the system working, imperfectly but necessarily, to get everyone where they're going in one piece. And if you're the one with the bag that doesn't fit, don't fight it. Just check it, smile, and know that you'll have a story to tell when you get to where you're going. Safe travels. This response is AI generated for reference only.